Chapter 2. Shadows of the past 6 months had passed since Jack and Luna left the Devil's Throat behind. They bought a small ranch on the outskirts, in a valley hidden from prying eyes by hills. It seemed their hell was finally over. But peace is an illusion for those with adventure in their blood, and the past is reluctant to let go. One evening, as Jack mended the fence and Luna went to the well for water, she froze. Her gaze, sharpened by life in the wild, caught movement on the ridge of a distant hill. Not a deer, not a coyote. It was a rider, motionless as a statue. He watched. A second later, he was gone, like a ghost. "They found us," she said quietly to Jack that night by the fireplace. Her eyes showed not panic, but the cold clarity of a hunter who has sensed danger. "Who?" "Aldrich is dead. Thorn is buried in that cave." Jack tightened the gun belt around his Colt. The familiar steel blade of habit and fear touched his soul once more. Not them, others. Those who serve the gold. Shadows from the canyon. The next morning, they found the carcass of a dead coyote on their doorstep, an arrow stuck in its throat. Not an Indian arrow, its tip was forged iron, old work, Spanish. This wasn't a challenge. It was a message. "We've come for what's ours." That same night, the ranch was attacked. Not with shouts and gunfire, but silently, like shadows. 5 men in weathered cloaks, their faces hidden in the deep shadows of their hats. Their movements were precise and ruthless. Jack returned fire, covering Luna, but they were outnumbered. The tallest of the attackers, with a gray mustache and a scar across his left eye, knocked Jack down with a powerful blow from his rifle butt. Luna was seized. Before they dragged her out of the house, she managed to shout, "Find he who remembers." In the ghost town, Silver Spur, Jack came to alone, his head splitting, hatred burning in his heart. They had taken everything from him again. His old demon, the vulture, awoke with renewed strength. He wouldn't just search for her, he would kill. The ghost town of Silver Spur was no myth. It was a graveyard of ambitions, with streets of sagging saloons and weed-choked sidewalks. The only inhabited place was the Last Scar Saloon, where a man named Blind Pete was wheezing behind the counter. He who remembers. Jack placed a gold coin from the Conquistador's cave on the counter. Pete turned the coin in his fingers. His milky eyes seemed blind, yet seemed more than those of a sighted man. The old mestizo, Elias, lives at the old mine in Rustwater Canyon. But he only talks to the wind, and those the wind brings him. Go to your doom, son. Rustwater Canyon was a cursed place. The water was red-brown from oxidized ore, and the air smelled of sulfur and death. Elias, a desiccated, mummy-like old man with skin the color of old parchment, lived in a shack at the entrance to an abandoned mine. Seeing Jack, he wasn't surprised. "I've been waiting for you, Vulture. The shadow of the gold is long. It has fallen upon your moon, too." "Who are they?" Jack growled. "The Order of the Rusted Cross," the old man lisped. "They serve not the gold, but its shadow. Descendants of those who guarded the Conquistador's treasure. They believe your woman is the last keeper of the blood, capable of lifting the curse and showing them the way to another part of the treasure. A greater one, hidden not in a cave, but in the hearts of men." Elias explained that Luna was not just a keeper of the map. The blood of that very Spanish noblewoman flowed in her veins, and only her voluntary sacrifice or terrible tormenta could, in their belief, break the ancient spell and reveal the path to the main trove. "Where are they?" A storm was brewing in Jack's voice. "At the old Fort Santa Catalina. Where it all began. Where her great-grandmother met her fate. The path to the fort was a series of deadly traps. The men of the Order, like demons, pursued Jack relentlessly. At the pass, they triggered a rock slide that almost crushed him. In a narrow gorge, he had to fight 3 alone, a battle that ended with bloody knives and silence. With every step, the vulture within him came alive, but now he was driven not by greed, but by a fierce, all-consuming love. Fort Santa Catalina stood on a cliff, like a bone in the throat of the sky. Slipping inside under the cover of night was nearly impossible, but Jack was a hunter. He found a half-collapsed drain and seeped into the enemy's lair. Inside, in the old chapel, by torchlight, he saw her, moon in the mist. She was chained to a stone altar. The man with the scar, called the commander, stood over her with a dagger heated red hot, its hilt shaped like a rusted cross. "She won't speak willingly, Vulture. Perhaps she will talk when she watches you die." Jack stepped out of the shadows, his Colt already in his hand. "Let her go." A chaotic, furious shootout erupted in the chapel's gloom. Jack, using columns for cover, fired at sounds. He wounded the commander in the shoulder, but one of his men crept up from behind. A struggle ensued. At that moment, Luna, using the chaos, pulled at her chains with the desperate strength only she possessed. The old, rusty bolt holding them in the wall gave way with a crack. She didn't run. Like a shadow, she approached the wounded commander, snatched a key ring from his belt, and pressed his own dagger to his throat. Order them to stop. Her voice was an icy whirlwind, but it was too late. Jack, fighting off the last mercenary, was struck in the back with a rifle butt and fell to his knees. A circle of enemies now closed in around him. Jack's gaze met Luna's. There was no fear in it, only acceptance and a decision. "Forgive me," she whispered, and before anyone understood her intent, she drew the dagger's blade across her palm. Drops of her blood fell onto the stone slabs of the altar, carved with ancient symbols. A deep hum emanated from the very earth. The chapel floor trembled. The stones beneath the feet of the Order's men began to crack and collapse into the blackness of an underground crypt. The curse was no metaphor, it was an ancient mechanical trap, activated by the blood of a descendant of its creator. The chapel was crumbling. The commander and his men screamed as they fell into the yawning abyss. Jack, mustering his last strength, lunged toward Luna. He grabbed her bleeding hand, and they stumbled over falling stones, fleeing the dying fort into the fresh night air. They stood clinging to each other, watching as Fort Santa Catalina disappeared in a cloud of dust and stone, taking with it the secrets of the Order and the last traces of the cursed gold. "You said forgive me. For what?" Jack asked, bandaging her hand. "For lying," Luna replied, gazing at the burning ruins. "I always knew I could do this. To know your destiny and accept it, that is true strength. But I was afraid. You have nothing left to fear." Jack held her. "We're heading west, to the ocean, where all trails end." And they walked into the night once more, to against the world, their wounds bleeding but their spirits stronger than stone. Their story wasn't over. Somewhere ahead, a new horizon and new dangers awaited. But now they knew no curse could withstand their will to be together.